All right, so we're continuing on with this information here, and with it, like we made the tables. We said, okay, piecewise function, x's came from here, all your x's, and let me draw this out. All of our x's came here. Our x's for the second one came from here. All of our x values, and then all of our y values for the last one came from there. All right, so again, all the x values just come from the domain, the restrictions, the domain, the intervals, the conditions, all that. But with it, we said we have to finish up our table. So we're going to go back again. Let's go back back to the first day of this class, or first lesson of this class, I should say. And we talked about something that dealt with our less than and greater than signs, interval notations, all that great stuff. So we're going to go back in time to and review this one more time, because I know you guys remember, but we're just going to review. So here, I'm going to throw in, we have the word symbol here. We're going to make a small table, guys. That's what we're doing here. Make a small table. We're going to have our words right here. We're going to say on a graph. This is what's going to be on the graph itself that we need. Not a number line, but the graph. And this is pulling into like what we're getting ready to do now. And then the old thing again of interval notation. All right. So first off, first things first. We have our less than sign and our greater than sign. The word form, we have less than, sorry, and greater than. Right, so we have both of those. Now, when it came to our on the graph itself, we talked about like with domain and range, and all that great stuff when they had the brackets and parentheses, all that. We had an open circle here on the graph. Not on a number line, but on a graph. But when it came to a number line, we actually had our parentheses. Right, so that means the other part is the greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. Sorry, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. All right, and we said because of that equal sign right there, these were both closed circles. So we put a closed dot right there, closed circles. And again, that's on the graph, not on a number line, but a graph. Remember we said if it was on a number line with open and closed circles, we pretty much have marked those wrong at this point. But on a number line, we did the interval notation with the actual brackets there. And then we did other stuff. All right, so with this is going to come back into play with what we have to do up here in the tables. So with that, again, as a quick review of old stuff that we learned at the very beginning of the semester, the very first lesson that we talked about in this class. And remember, I said everything builds here. So we're building, guys. We're taking that and we're building on top of it. And I love it. I love how math builds. All right. Now, with it, remember we talked about like our endpoints, and it says less than -5 or greater than 1. We said that it's not going to equal that number, but it actually the numbers behind the -5 or in front of the 1, like on that number line. So with this, we have to kind of talk about that. So here, we call those numbers like the -5 here, the numbers here and 1 are, we call them our endpoints. And the endpoints are the only points that can be. I'm like, guys, I'm reading what I wrote down, so I'm saying like that. So endpoints are the only points that can be open or closed. That can be open or closed points. Or circle, sorry. Right? So again, endpoints are the only points that can be open or closed circles. I'll tell you about the other points after that. Because the other points are so easy. It's gonna be easy, guys. It's gonna be like, whew, Mr. Hall, like I wish we understood this earlier. But they told us this earlier. And I'll be like, I know, right? I know. And stuff. Alright, so we got that. So I'm pulling these back out from your conditions from the actual piecewise function we had at the top. So I'm pulling those back out. So with this, I'm going to circle these because these are going to be important. This part here, this part, this part, and this part. So I'm giving you guys a visual because some of you guys probably like endpoints. What do you mean it's all like this is so confusing? What? So I pulled out the condition, the restriction, the domain, the intervals, and these numbers that I've circled are endpoints. So these are our endpoints here. And so with that, as we're talking about our endpoints and everything, we're going to actually have to tell, okay, are they open or closed? And that's going to come from what we know about this table right here that we just did, that we reviewed with. We said if it's less than or greater than, we have an open circle on the graph. So here, this is a less than sign. And the less than sign means, we don't need that part, sorry about that. That means -5 is an open circle. So at that point, -5, and if you look back at the table, -5, 26, that is actually an open circle. And guys, we're going to go back to it. We're going to look at it. When it comes to 1 on the third table, that's a greater than sign. And that greater than sign means, I did it again. The greater than sign means 1 is an open circle. All right, so we have a less than sign, a greater than sign. Those means open circles on those numbers right there. All right, and then these other two right here, those are less than or equal to signs. And as we said, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, those were closed circles. So on our graph, sorry, 2, that means -5 and 1 on this middle table are closed circles. So they are closed circles here. So coming back to our table real quick, and I'll leave that there for a little bit. But coming back to our tables, we're going to put those on here. And we're going to put those symbols. So here, a -5 on the first table, we said that's an open circle. That's consider open circle right there. We said for 1 on the third table, it's an open circle. And then for -5 and 1 on the second table, we have closed circles right here. Okay, so that kind of makes sense with less than, greater than signs we had right here. Putting it all together, yeah. So we're kind of getting that. But then you're like, wait, Mr. Hall, what about the rest of those? Like, there's all these other numbers up here. What do we do with those? I'm glad you asked. I'm so glad you asked that. So the great thing about this last part is all the other points are always, not sometimes, but always closed circle. Not sometimes, but always. So if it's not an endpoint, sorry, oh, y'all can't see it. If it's not an endpoint, it means it's always, every time, no matter what's happening on this graph. It is always a closed circle. No matter when, no matter what you're talking about, it's always going to be a closed circle. If it's not an endpoint, it's a closed. So you don't have to be like, Mr. Hall, like, well, how am I supposed to know when it's going to be open and when it's going to be closed? I just told you. So if it's going to be this, if it's going to be an endpoint, that means it could be open and closed. But if it's any other point here, guys, it's automatically closed. So that means when we come back to our table here, our tables, sorry, we're going to put closed, 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 closed for every other point that's on this table. Bam! And guys, that's it. That's graphing that's making tables for piecewise functions. So we're going to come to like an example here, like two examples. We're going to go through it and we're going to explain what's going on, and then we'll be good with the tables part, and then go into our graphing. All right. So I will see you guys in the next video.